In this video, I'll be going over the process of setting up the default design constraints inside of the Drainage DGN library. The default design constraints are going to be in the Analysis tab. We'll open up that dialog, and below here are the design constraints that the software is going to be using to design pipe diameters, invert elevations, node structures, and also the inlets. This dialog is divided into 3 different tabs. So we have design constraints for the gravity pipes, the nodes, and the inlets. We'll start with the gravity pipes. When you're setting the constraints for the gravity pipes, you're going to have 2 different types. You can either do simple, where you're going to do a range, where that's going to be just a minimum to a maximum, or we can also do a table, where based off of the rise, you're going to have a minimum and maximum for each. Set this to simple, and I'm going to go 2 to 15. Then I'm going to move over into the cover. This toggle here, when we have this checked on, the cover along the pipe length is going to be considered. So it's going to keep checking the terrain model along the pipe instead of just at the pipe ends. And this is going to use the active terrain model. Then we have measure cover 2. So when we're measuring that cover from the terrain model to the conduit, we either want to measure that off of the crown of the pipe, which is the very top of the pipe, or the pipe soffit, which is going to be that inside top of the pipe. For the cover constraints type, we can do simple, which is going to be a minimum and maximum range. Or if we choose the table, again, you have a minimum and maximum cover value per rise. Now keep in mind, when you're setting these values within this dialog, these are the default design constraints that will be loaded into the DGN when a drainage project is created. So we want to set these up in a way that are going to fit the needs of most projects, and then per project the designer will need to go into this dialog and set their constraints for their project. And then on top of that, we can also assign what we call local design constraints. So here is what I would consider global, which is going to apply to all of the gravity pipes, all of the nodes, and all of the inlets. And a local design constraint is going to apply to just a class of pipes or a class of nodes or inlets. Or we could do it on the individual level, where within the project we just have certain pipes or nodes that we want to define special constraints for. So a lot of times when we're thinking about the cover for pipes, that's going to define the class of the pipe that you're going to use, or maybe what gauge is going to be used if we're thinking about a metal pipe. But typically here is not where we are going to be defining for each rise, although you could do something where you did it with a table and you said for a 12-inch rise, your range is going to be from 10 feet to 33 feet. Or 108-inch rise can be 8 to 30. You could do something like that, and that is going to keep the pipes within the cover range per size. And then at the end you would go in and assign the class, depending on how it would be classified for your fill height table. Another option is to go simple, where we just say our minimum is going to be 8 and then our maximum is going to be 33. If we want to consider arch pipes at this point too, then we would also want to use the values in that table. So I'm going to go from 7 to 33 for my range. We'll do the same thing for slope. So again, we have a simple or table. And right now I'm in feet per feet, so this is going to be 0.01 to 0.2. So you're either going to look at your design manual for drainage to know what these values are, or consult your hydraulics team. Then this last tab over here is going to be tractive stress. This will be the minimum tractive stress in the conduit for the flow that the designer tries to achieve during the design process. Now there are priorities during the design. So in Bentley Communities there is an article on here that explains what that order of the design priorities that are used inside of StormCAD. So we can choose whether or not we want to include tractive stress. If we do, then we would just insert whatever that design minimum is.